Hello, party people. So we're doing something different. We're doing a reaction to a lot of stories, audiobooks that I've been showing up in my YouTube feed. I don't know why they're showing up there, but here they are nevertheless. Now, Rose Everly, ROSE, of course, EVERLY. And then the rest of the channel is called GL Books. GL stands for Girl Love. Now, the name of this story that she's going to read out loud, it's entitled My Fiancé Left Me at the Wedding Ceremony. His beautiful sister took me to her home. WOW romance. Women loving women. So, here it is. This is one that I liked. It was the first one I saw. It was also one of the shortest. I didn't want to be here for like 90 minutes talking to you guys about this, but I would enjoy it. I'm not sure you would. If you do enjoy this, let me know because I'm addicted right now. I'm 100% addicted. Okay. Yeah. So let's get started over here. Oh, there will be a specific moment near the end. I want to ask this question. I know my answer. I want to know what everyone else thinks about this. I'm just throwing it out there. Okay, let me just move myself up here and we'll get started. This is like 47 minutes, guys, just to let you know if you want to have a time frame. Okay,
Welcome to the channel. The story you'll hear today begins with a major disappointment on a wedding day and turns into an unexpected turning point. Love, pain, and the strange twists of fate come together in this story. If you're ready, let's begin.
Oh, I'm ready. An audio story, like an audiobook. Yeah.
There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a room of 200 people when they realize the groom isn't coming. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts as a low murmur, a ripple of unease in the back pews, and then it spreads, moving up the aisle like a cold draft until it reaches the altar. That was where I was standing. I was wearing a dress that cost more than my car, holding a bouquet of white peonies that were already starting to wilt under the hot church lights, waiting for a man who was currently 30 miles away, texting his best man that he just couldn't do it. I didn't cry. Not at first. I think my brain simply short-circuited. I stood there staring at the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church, the ones that were supposed to swing open for him.
It's so fucked up.
The priest was shifting awkwardly on his feet. The
Even the priest
groomsmen were
knows.
looking at the floor. My mother was making a sound in the front row that sounded like a dying bird. But I was just frozen, trapped in a nightmare where my feet were glued to the marble floor. And then a sound broke through the static in my head. The sharp, authoritative click of heels against stone. Someone was walking up the aisle. I blinked, my vision coming back into focus, and saw her. Victoria, my fiancé's older sister. She wasn't supposed to be walking toward me. She was supposed to be sitting in the second row, looking impossibly elegant and slightly bored, the way she always did at family gatherings. But here she was, closing the distance between us with long, purposeful strides. She was wearing a tailored emerald green silk suit that hugged her body in a way that made everyone else in the room look unkempt. Her dark hair was swept back from her face, emphasizing the sharp, striking lines of her cheekbones and those piercing, dark eyes. Eyes that were currently locked entirely on me.
Someone knows how well
She didn't
written
look at
this
her
is.
brother's groomsmen. She didn't look at the priest. She walked straight up the steps of the altar, stepping into my personal space with a quiet, undeniable command. When she reached me, she didn't offer pity. She didn't give me that awful, tilted head look of sympathy that I knew
Damn.
everyone else in the room was currently aiming at my back. Instead, she reached out and took the heavy, wilting bouquet from my shaking hands. She tossed it casually onto the altar. Then, she took my hands in hers. Her skin was warm, her grip firm, and for the first time in what felt like hours, I took a breath. "Look at me," she said. Her voice was low, smooth, and perfectly steady. It was a voice designed to calm panicked animals and command boardrooms. I forced my eyes up to meet hers. "He's not coming," And we are not going to stand here and let these people stare at you for another second. Come with me. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, a jerky, pathetic little motion, and let her pull me forward. Victoria didn't hesitate. She kept one hand firmly wrapped around mine and led me back down the aisle. The murmurs swelled as we walked, but the moment Victoria shot a freezing glare into the crowd, the whispers died in her wake. She parted that sea of pitying guests like a force of nature.
Damn.
I felt numb, floating outside of my own body. But the one thing tethering me to the earth was the heat of her hand holding mine. We made it out of the heavy church doors and into the glaring afternoon sunlight. The sudden heat of the day hit me like a physical blow, and my knees finally buckled. I stumbled, the heavy layers of tulle and silk dragging me down, but Victoria caught me before I hit the pavement. Her arm wrapped tight around my waist, pulling my back flush against her side. I could smell her perfume, an intoxicating, expensive blend of sandalwood, bergamot, and something dark and smoky that I couldn't place. It cut through the sickeningly sweet smell of the hairspray and floral arrangements that had been clinging to me all morning. "I've got you," she murmured, her breath grazing my temple. "My car is right here." She half carried, half walked me to a sleek black sedan idling by the curb. She opened the passenger door and carefully helped me maneuver the massive, ridiculous dress into the leather seat. I watched her walk around the front of the car, her movements fluid and sharply controlled. When she slid into the driver's seat, the heavy door thudded shut behind her, sealing us into a quiet, air-conditioned sanctuary. Ooh, she didn't start the engine right away. She just sat there, her hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, turning her head to look at me. I waited for her to apologize for him. I waited for her to say she was so sorry her brother was a coward, that he was just overwhelmed, that he was an idiot. But Victoria had never been one for useless platitudes. "Where do you want to go?" she asked quietly. "And don't say home, unless you actually want to go back to the apartment with all his things in it." Tears finally pricked the corners of my eyes, hot and sharp. "I don't know," I whispered, my voice cracking. I want to disappear." Victoria's gaze softened, just a fraction. It was a subtle shift, but on a face as guarded as hers, it felt monumental. "Disappearing isn't an option," she said gently. "But hiding out for a while is. My place. It's close, and no one will bother us." I didn't argue. I just nodded, leaning my heavy head against the cool glass of the window. The car glided smoothly away from the curb, leaving the church, the guests, and the ruined remains of my life behind. I watched the city streets blur past, the afternoon sun casting long golden shadows across the pavement. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, thick with the unsaid, but strangely protective. I had known Victoria for 3 years, but I realized in that car ride that I didn't really know her at all. She had always been a peripheral figure in my relationship with David. The intimidating older sister who lived in the city, ran her own architectural firm, and looked at David with a mixture of affection and thinly veiled exhaustion. I had always been a little afraid of her. She was too sharp, too observant, too effortlessly gorgeous. Whenever we were at family dinners, I would catch her watching me across the table, those dark eyes assessing, analyzing, seeing things I didn't want anyone to see. I had always assumed she was judging me, finding me lacking, wondering why her brother had chosen someone so ordinary. But right now, the only thing she was radiating was a fierce, protective warmth. We pulled into the underground garage of a sleek, high-rise building. Victoria navigated the car into a private spot and cut the engine. She came around to my side and opened the door, offering her hand again. I took it, letting her guide me to the private elevator. The ride up to the penthouse was silent.
Penthouse.
I stared at the numbers ticking upward, feeling the adrenaline slowly draining out of my system, leaving behind a bone-deep, crushing exhaustion. When the elevator doors opened, we stepped directly into her apartment. It was exactly like her. Minimalist, expensive, wrapped in floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the skyline. It was beautiful, cold, and completely untouched by the chaos of the world outside. "Come on," Victoria said, leading me down a wide hallway toward the master bedroom. "Let's get you out of that dress." The words sent a strange, inappropriate shiver down my spine, but the reality was far less romantic. The dress was a cage. It weighed at least 20 pounds, constructed of boning, tightly woven lace, and a zipper that ran all the way down my spine, secured by a row of tiny, impossible pearl buttons. I stood in the middle of Victoria's immaculate bedroom, suddenly feeling ridiculous, like a tragic clown in a museum. I reached behind my back, my fingers trembling so badly I couldn't even grasp the first button. "I can't," I choked out, the frustration finally breaking the dam. A sob tore from my throat, raw and ugly. "I can't get it off. I'm stuck." "Hey," Victoria said softly, stepping in close.
She's stuck.
"Hey, it's okay. Breathe. Let me." She moved behind me. I felt the warmth of her body against my back, the faint, intoxicating smell of her perfume enveloping me again. Her fingers brushed against the bare skin of my shoulders, cool and steady, and I gasped at the contact. It had been months since David had touched me with anything resembling care. His touches had become rushed, distracted, dutiful. But Victoria's hands were deliberate. She began working the tiny pearl loops, her knuckles grazing my spine with every movement. I stood perfectly still, closing my eyes, feeling the humiliating tears sliding down my cheeks, but also feeling an undeniable, terrifying spark of electricity every time her skin met mine. The contrast was dizzying. I was profoundly heartbroken, completely humiliated, and yet, standing in this quiet room with her hands on me, my skin was flushed with a sudden, overwhelming heat. "He never deserved you, you know," Victoria murmured, her voice vibrating low in the quiet room. I opened my eyes, staring at our reflection in the massive mirror across the room. I looked like a ghost, pale and ruined, makeup smeared beneath my eyes. Victoria stood behind me, her dark eyes locked on mine in the reflection. Her expression was fiercely intense, her jaw set. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't say that just to make me feel better." "I don't say things just to make people feel better, Clara," she replied, her fingers pausing on the zipper. "I'm saying it because it's the truth. I've known my brother his whole life. He is weak. He takes the path of least resistance. The moment I met you, I knew you were too much for him. Too bright, too deep. I knew he would eventually realize he couldn't keep up, and I knew he would run." She pulled the zipper down smoothly, the sound loud in the quiet room. The heavy bodice of the dress loosened, releasing its crushing grip on my ribs. I took a deep, shuddering breath. "If you knew," I said, my voice shaking, "why didn't you warn me?" Victoria met my eyes in the mirror, her gaze burning with something I had never seen before, something dangerous. "Because," she said softly, her hands sliding up to grip my bare shoulders, her thumbs pressing gently into my collarbones. "It wasn't my place. And because I hoped, you would figure it out on your own, before it got to this." She let go of me, stepping back. "The bathroom is through there. There are towels, makeup wipes, whatever you need. I'll leave some clothes on the bed for you." Before I could say anything else, she turned and walked out of the room, closing the door softly behind her. I stood there for a long moment, the unzipped dress hanging loose off my frame, my heart hammering against my ribs in a rhythm that had absolutely nothing to do with my runaway groom. I took a shower, letting the scalding water wash away the hairspray, the heavy makeup, and the lingering scent of the church.
Good word.
When I stepped out, wrapped in a plush towel, I found a pair of soft silk pajama pants and an oversized cashmere sweater waiting on the bed.
Cashmere.
They smelled faintly of her. I put them on, feeling swallowed up by the luxurious fabric, and slowly made my way out to the living room. The sun was beginning to set, casting a deep, bruised purple light over the city. Victoria was standing by the massive windows, holding a glass of amber liquid, looking out at the skyline. She had taken off her suit jacket. She was just wearing her silk blouse, the sleeves rolled up to her forearms, the top 2 buttons undone. She looked relaxed, yet coiled, like a predator at rest. She turned when she heard my bare feet on the hardwood floor. She picked up a second glass from the sleek kitchen island and held it out to me. "Drink this, it helps." I took it, my fingers brushing hers. I took a sip. It was whiskey, smooth and burning all the way down to my stomach. It hit my bloodstream instantly, loosening the tight, panicked knot in my chest. "Thank you," I said, my voice raspy. "For everything today. You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," Victoria said simply. She walked over to the long velvet sofa and sat down, patting the space next to her. "Come sit." I curled up on the opposite end of the sofa, pulling my knees to my chest, letting the oversized sweater swallow me. We sat in silence for a long time as the sky outside turned completely black, the city lights flickering to life like scattered diamonds. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a heavy, exhausted surrender. I realized I didn't want to talk about David. I didn't want to dissect the relationship or figure out where it went wrong. I just wanted to sit in the dark with the scent of sandalwood and the low thrum of the city outside. "I turned my phone off," I said, quietly, into the darkness. "I can only imagine the voicemails my mother is leaving." "I turned mine off, too," Victoria replied. I could hear the faint clinking of ice in her glass. "The family is currently in absolute chaos, I'm sure. My mother is probably demanding someone find him, my father is probably threatening to disown him, and David is likely sitting in a cheap motel somewhere, drinking cheap beer and feeling sorry for himself." A short, bitter laugh escaped me. "That sounds exactly right." I turned my head to look at her in the dim light. "Are you really not going to check on him? He is your brother." Victoria sighed, a slow, deep sound. She shifted on the sofa, turning her body toward me. The movement brought her closer, the distance between us shrinking just enough to make my pulse jump. "My brother is a grown man who made a choice to publicly humiliate the best thing that ever happened to him. I have no interest in comforting him right now. My concern is you." The intensity in her voice made my breath catch. "Why?" I whispered. "We were never even that close, Victoria. You always kept your distance. I honestly thought you didn't like me very much." Victoria laughed, a low, rich sound that sent a shockwave straight to my center. "You thought I didn't like you?" she repeated, shaking her head. She leaned forward, placing her empty glass on the coffee table. When she leaned back, she didn't return to her side of the sofa. She stayed close, so close I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. "Clara, the reason I kept my distance wasn't because I didn't like you. It was because I liked you entirely too much." I froze. The whiskey in my veins suddenly felt like liquid fire. "What?" Victoria held my gaze, her dark eyes completely unreadable in the shadows. "From the first day he brought you to Sunday dinner. You walked in, wearing that yellow sundress, laughing at something stupid he said, and I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. You were so alive, so vibrant, and you looked at him with this absolute adoration." She swallowed, her jaw tightening. It made me sick. Not because I didn't want him to be happy, but because I knew exactly what he would do to that light in you. He'd dim it, he'd take you for granted, and I had to sit there for 3 years across the table from you, watching it happen, unable to say a word because you belonged to him.
Jeez.
My heart was hammering so loudly I was sure she could hear it. I couldn't process what she was saying. My brain, already fragile from the trauma of the day, was completely short-circuiting under the weight of this confession. Victoria.
Confession.
The untouchable, flawless, intimidating Victoria. "You're just saying this," I whispered, my voice trembling.
So, in Japanese culture, I believe, maybe some other East Asian countries, when you confess, it's like you're telling the other person that, essentially that you like them, that you asking them out, etc. That's what the whole confess thing means. Um, does it have the same correlation in this story? Maybe a little bit, but obviously she's referring to Victoria's confession of, oh, I've always been enamored by you, etc.
You're trying to distract me. I never say things I don't mean, she replied fiercely. She reached out, her hand hovering in the space between us before she gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Her fingers lingered against my cheek, her thumb brushing the line of my jaw. The touch was agonizingly tender, a stark contrast to the sharp lines of her personality. I watched him ignore you. I watched him talk over you. I watched you shrink yourself to fit into his life. And every single time, I wanted to reach across the table, grab you by the hand, and pull you away from him. I leaned into her touch entirely by instinct. My eyes fluttered shut. You shouldn't be saying this to me. Not today. I know, she murmured, her thumb tracing my lower lip. I gasped at the contact, my eyes flying open. Her face was dangerously close to mine now. I could see the golden flecks in her dark eyes, the faint parting of her lips. I told myself I was just going to rescue you, give you a place to stay, be the good sister. But sitting here in the dark with you, looking at you. I'm selfish, Clara. I've always been selfish. She didn't kiss me. She just stayed there, hovering on the edge of my space, giving me every opportunity to pull away.
And she didn't.
But I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. The sheer magnetic pull of her was drowning out everything else. The humiliation of the altar, the ghost of her brother, the ruin of my future. All of it burned away under the heat of her gaze. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice a broken whisper. You don't have to do anything, Victoria said, pulling her hand back, though the loss of contact made me ache. You sleep. You heal. You stay here as long as you need. I won't push you. I needed you to know. Because I couldn't watch you cry over a man who isn't worth a fraction of your tears without telling you exactly what you're worth. She stood up abruptly, the sudden movement breaking the heavy spell that had settled over the sofa. Get some sleep, Clara. The guest room is made up. She walked away, retreating down the hall to the master bedroom,
When did she make
leaving
the
me alone in the dark with my
guest room up?
racing thoughts and a body that felt entirely too awake.
Was it already made up?
The next few days passed in a strange, surreal blur. I didn't leave the apartment. I kept my phone off, burying it at the bottom of my purse. You know, before all this, I used to listen to stories on GL Audio Story and think, that only happens in fiction. But life has a funny way of proving you wrong.
I missed that. That was kind of funny.
Here I was, living in an architectural magazine dream, hiding from the wreckage of my own wedding, cohabitating with my runaway groom's devastatingly attractive older sister. Victoria was a quiet, steady presence. She worked from her kitchen island, typing away on her laptop, making business calls in her sharp, commanding tone. But she always softened the moment she looked at me. She cooked for me. She ordered terrible reality television on the massive flat screen and watched it with me without a single word of judgment. She made me laugh. Actually laugh. For the first time in months. Her humor was dry, sarcastic, and wicked, and I found myself craving her attention like it was a drug. The dynamic between us shifted subtly every day. The careful distance of the first night evaporated, replaced by a charged domestic intimacy. We brushed shoulders in the kitchen while pouring coffee. Our knees knocked together under the small dining table. Whenever she looked at me, there was a weight to her gaze, a lingering heat that made my skin flush. I caught myself watching her when she wasn't looking, noticing the way her throat moved when she swallowed, the way her silk shirts draped over her shoulders, the elegant, capable strength of her hands. The realization hit me on the fourth day. I was sitting on the sofa, reading a book, when Victoria walked out of her bedroom. She had just showered. Her hair was damp, hanging loose around her shoulders, and she was wearing nothing but a short, black silk robe loosely tied at her waist. My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at the long line of her legs, the pale expanse of her chest visible in the V of the robe. She looked up, catching my stare, and she didn't look away. The air in the room instantly thickened. I didn't want her brother. I didn't miss him. The thought of him didn't bring pain anymore. It just brought a dull annoyance. The only person I wanted, the only person taking up space in my mind, was her. The realization terrified me, but it also thrilled me in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Like what you see?" Victoria asked.
Do I even just say anything at this point?
Her voice dropping an octave, a wicked little smirk playing on her lips. I swallowed hard, my face burning, but I didn't lower my eyes. "Yes," I said softly. Victoria's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of sudden, intense hunger. She took a step toward me, the silk robe shifting, but before she could close the distance, the sharp, jarring sound of the apartment buzzer echoed through the room.
Sucks.
We both jumped, the spell broken instantly.
Spell.
Victoria frowned, tying her robe tighter. "I'm not expecting anyone," she muttered, walking over to the intercom by the door. She pressed the button to activate the video feed, and I watched as the color completely drained from her face.
Shit.
I stood up, dropping my book. "Who is it?" Victoria didn't answer. She pressed the intercom button. "How did you get past the doorman?" she snapped, her voice
She
pure
looked
ice.
so mad.
A tinny, muffled voice came through the speaker, a voice that made my stomach drop to the floor. "Victoria, please, let me up. I know she's there. Mom told me she saw your car at the church. Please, Vic, I need to talk to her." It was David. My heart started to pound, a cold sweat breaking out on the back of my neck. He was here. He was downstairs. Victoria turned to look at me, her eyes flashing with a protective fury. "Go to the bedroom," she ordered. "I'm calling security to have him removed." "No," I said. The word surprised both of us. It came out steady, firm. I took a deep breath, walking over to stand next to her. I looked at the grainy video feed. David looked terrible. He was unshaven, wearing a wrinkled shirt, his eyes red and desperate. Seeing him didn't make me want to cry. It didn't make me want to scream. It just made me feel exhausted. "Let him up," I said quietly. "Clara, no. You don't have to do this," Victoria argued, stepping in front of the screen as if she could shield me from him physically. "He doesn't get to barge in here and demand anything." "I need to," I insisted, meeting her eyes. "I need to look at him, Victoria. I need to finish this." Victoria studied my face for a long, tense moment. Her jaw clenched tight, but she finally nodded. She pressed the button to unlock the lobby doors. "If he raises his voice, if he steps out of line for even a second, I am throwing him out myself," she warned. "I know," I said. "Go put some clothes on." She vanished into her bedroom, re-emerging a minute later wearing black slacks and a fitted black turtleneck. She looked like an executioner. The doorbell rang a moment later. Victoria marched to the door and yanked it open. David stood in the hallway, looking small and pathetic. He opened his mouth to speak to his sister, but Victoria didn't give him the chance. She stepped aside, a silent, menacing guardian, allowing him to see me standing in the center of the living room. He walked in slowly, looking around the immaculate apartment before his eyes finally landed on me. "Clara," he choked out, his eyes welling with tears. "God, Clara, I am so sorry." He took a step toward me, reaching out, but Victoria immediately moved, placing herself directly between us. "Don't touch her," she said softly. It was barely a whisper, but the threat in it was absolute. David stopped, looking from Victoria to me. "Vic, please, give us a minute. I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain, David," I said, my voice steady. I stepped out from behind Victoria, but I didn't step toward him. I kept my distance. "You left me standing at the altar. You didn't even have the courage to tell me yourself. You had your best man whisper it to the priest. I panicked, he pleaded, tears spilling over. I got in my head. I thought I wasn't good enough for you, that I'd mess up your life. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. Please, Clara, I love you. Let's just talk. We can fix this. I looked.
Okay. How many people would actually forgive him and actually get back together with him and presumably have a second wedding for the same people, just a different wedding? Because, as you might already know, my decision in this would be I would not forgive him. If I was a groom and my soon-to-be wife left me standing there, oh hell no.
At him. Really looked at him. I looked for the man I thought I was going to marry, the man I had spent 3 years of my life building a future around. But I couldn't find him. All I saw was a boy who had broken my heart because it was easier than facing a difficult conversation. And then I looked at the woman standing beside him, Victoria, who had caught me when I fell. Victoria, who had held my hair, fed me, protected me, and told me the truth even when it was terrifying. The contrast was so sharp it almost made me laugh. We can't fix this, David, I said, crossing my arms over my chest. Because it isn't broken. It's just over.
Damn.
You don't mean that, he begged, shaking his head.
He doesn't mean that.
You're just angry. You have every right to be angry. Yell at me, hit me, whatever you want. Just don't say it's over. It's over, I repeated, the words feeling incredibly liberating, lifting off my shoulders like physical weights. I don't hate you, David. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just done. I don't want you in my life. Clara, please. She said she's done, Victoria interrupted, her voice slicing through the air like a blade. She stepped forward, crowding David back toward the door. You heard her. Now get out of my apartment. Vic, you can't do this. You're my sister, David yelled, frustration finally breaking through his pathetic facade. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on the side of the woman you abandoned, you absolute coward, Victoria hissed, grabbing him by the arm and shoving him backward toward the open door. If you ever come near her again, if you ever call her, if you ever so much as breathe in her direction, I will personally ruin you. Do you understand me? I will freeze your trust. I will lock you out of the firm, and I will make sure you don't have a cent to your name. Now leave.
Oh no, Dad. Oh my god.
David stared at her, genuinely terrified. He looked at me one last time, searching for a lifeline, but my face was stone.
Stone face.
He swallowed hard, turned, and practically ran down the hallway to the elevator. Victoria slammed the heavy door shut, twisting the deadbolt with a loud final click.
Jeez.
Silence descended on the apartment again, but it was a different kind of silence this time. It was the silence of a storm that had just broken, leaving the air highly charged, thick with ozone and electricity. Victoria stood with her back to me, her hands resting flat against the door, her chest heaving with heavy, adrenaline-fueled breaths. I didn't move. I just watched the tense line of her shoulders, the way her dark hair cascaded over the black fabric of her turtleneck. I felt a rush of heat flood my body, a wave of pure, unadulterated desire that knocked the breath completely out of my lungs. Seeing her defend me, seeing the absolute, possessive fury in her eyes, it broke whatever final barrier was left between us. Victoria, I whispered. She turned around slowly. Her eyes were dark, blown wide with adrenaline and something else, something dangerous. She looked at me, taking in the way I was breathing, the flush on my chest and neck, the way my hands were trembling. Are you okay? She asked, her voice rough, barely holding on to her composure. Yes, I said. I took a step toward her. My heart was pounding so hard it physically hurt, but I didn't stop. I took another step. And another. until I was standing mere inches from her. I had to tilt my head back to look into her eyes. I'm more than okay. Victoria swallowed, her gaze dropping to my lips before snapping back up to my eyes. Her hands, still resting at her sides, curled into tight fists. Clara, you just broke up with my brother for good. Your emotions are all over the place. Don't do this unless you are absolutely sure. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I murmured.
Damn.
I reached out, resting my hands flat against her chest. I could feel the frantic, hammering rhythm of her heart through the soft fabric of her sweater. It matched mine perfectly. Victoria let out a shuddering breath, her eyes fluttering shut for a fraction of a second as my touch registered. You are going to drive me insane, she whispered, her voice cracking. Then let me, I replied. Victoria's restraint finally snapped. Her hands shot out, wrapping around my waist, pulling me flush against her body with a desperate, crushing force. I gasped into the sudden impact, but before I could make another sound, her mouth crashed down on mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was an explosion. 3 years of repressed longing, hidden glances, and quiet jealousy poured into a single, devastating collision. Her lips were hungry, demanding, parting mine with a fierce urgency that sent a jolt of liquid fire straight down to my toes. I tangled my hands in her dark hair, pulling her closer, opening my mouth to her and letting her completely take over. She tasted like whiskey, mint, and pure, intoxicating power. She walked me backward, her mouth never leaving mine until my back hit the wall of the hallway with a soft thud. She pinned me there, her body pressing heavily against mine, her knee shifting to part my legs slightly so she could step into my space. The friction, the heat, the sheer possessiveness of her touch. It was overwhelming. I whimpered into her mouth, my head falling back against the wall, giving her better access to my throat. Victoria took the invitation instantly. Her lips left my mouth, trailing hot, open-mouthed kisses along my jaw, down the sensitive column of my neck, to the soft hollow of my collarbone. I let out a breathless, embarrassing sound as her teeth grazed my skin, my fingers gripping her shoulders so hard I was surely bruising her. Mine, she murmured against my skin, the word sending a shiver of absolute pleasure down my spine. You were always supposed to be mine. Yes,
God damn.
I breathed, pulling her face back up to mine so I could kiss her again, deeper this time, pouring all of my own relief and desire into it. Always. The kiss slowed, shifting from desperate hunger to a deep, agonizingly sensual rhythm. Her hands roamed over my body, mapping the curves of my waist, my hips, her touch burning through the thin fabric of my clothes. Every place she touched felt like it was finally waking up after years of being numb. We stood in the hallway for what felt like hours, entirely consumed by the taste and feel of each other, shedding the past and the pain with every breathless kiss, until our legs literally couldn't hold us up anymore. When I woke up the next morning, the apartment was flooded with bright, golden sunlight. I was tangled in the expensive silk sheets of Victoria's bed, my head resting comfortably on her bare chest. I could hear the steady, rhythmic beating of her heart beneath my ear. The heavy, oppressive weight that had been sitting on my chest for months, the anxiety, the doubt, the fear of making the wrong choice, was completely gone. I felt incredibly light. I tilted my head up. Victoria was already awake, lying on her back, her arm wrapped securely around me, her fingers idly drawing circles on my bare shoulder. She looked down at me, a soft, incredibly tender smile playing on her lips. It changed her whole face, stripping away the intimidating older sister and leaving behind the woman who had caught me when I fell. "Good morning," she murmured, her morning voice rough and low, sending a fresh wave of heat through me. "Good morning," I smiled back, pressing a soft kiss to her collarbone. "What time is it?" "Does it matter?" she asked, pulling me up slightly so she could kiss me properly, her lips soft and lazy. We don't have anywhere to be. I pulled back, looking into her dark eyes. There was no hesitation in them, no regret, no fear of the absolute chaos our relationship was going to cause in her family. There was only absolute certainty. No, I agreed, settling back into her embrace, pulling the blankets up around us, feeling completely, utterly safe. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. They say the day you get married is supposed to be the best day of your life. I didn't get married that day. I stood at an altar in a heavy dress, surrounded by pity, and watched my future evaporate into thin air. It was supposed to be a tragedy. But lying there, wrapped in the arms of the woman who had walked into that church and pulled me out of the ruins, I knew the truth. Getting left at the altar was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it cleared the path for her, and I was never, ever looking back.
Awaken to a world of wonder in Final Fantasy XIV Online.
No. You guys, what's this awesome video coming up next? I don't know. Alright, let me just exit this real fast. So, I hope you guys like that. I mean, like, this is probably like my 4th or 5th time watching it, like from start to finish. It's quite a, you gotta admit, it's quite a story. And like, okay, so the obvious question is how much of this is AI? And from what I read, the actual story itself, the written words, video words, captions, a human being, I think, wrote that, the whole story. The images, however, you clearly saw there are differences in some of the images, right? Like, she looks a certain skin tone, her hair is different, etc. I mean, like, she doesn't say she drew it herself, is all I'm saying. So I think it's up for interpretation. Maybe there's many of these pictures generated before, even drawn, you never know. But is there an AI element to it? People can assume yes, but I think it's better not to know. Okay. So I hope you guys like that. That was like, what, 47 minutes. I think I'm going to be spending a lot of time on YouTube. The next one, I started watching there's a girl who starts stealing Wi-Fi from her neighbor, and the neighbor knew the whole time. She was a security analyst, so she was familiar with networks and firewalls and all that. She changed the name of the network one day to these words. It was regular, like Linksys, blah blah blah, whatever number. She changed it to "come over," and then that's the premise right there. The whole story. The whole time she knew she was stealing her internet, and she saw the website she was going through, all this shit. It was crazy. It was crazy, man. I need to finish that one, but like it's pretty good so far. Well, I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why I enjoy these. I don't know. It's just maybe it's some bizarre masculine thing. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But I will say that I know for a fact that these are like this girl's channel is gonna blow up. Is all I'm saying, and it makes sense why. All right, well, guys, the name of the channel is in the description. I'll link this the video as well. So until next time, thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other.